Hello everyone, welcome back to my reading of Fate Prototype Fragments of Sky Silver, Volume 4. We're now moving on to Dear My Hero, Act 3, right? So we have kind of established the relationship between Archer and Lancer and how they got a little temporary truce thing going. So let's head on in and actually start with the reading of this chapter here. So, I'm trying to see who's talking first. Okay, so this was for an archer with his... Okay, I don't know. When he lived. So I'm guessing this might still be Lancer. Maybe. What was his master thinking? For an archer with keen eyesight, with eyesight as keen as his, it was obvious at a glance. His eyes could see the strike of a single arrow launched far into the distance. His eyes could survey the state of any army, friend and foe alike. Fields, mountains, beasts. The swift archer's dark eyes reflected everything. In body, in spirit. When he lived as a mortal man, before he was a heroic spirit, the great king, whose name needs to be changed to fit the FGO version, direct descendant of the Dragon Slayer, had told him that his flesh was a blessing brought through time from the ancient age of gods, an irreplaceable treasure. Therefore his eyes too possessed an extraordinary power. He remembered replying simply, "I see." Hearing the words of a great king, one who he should have met with reverential awe, he simply nodded and uttered an impolite remark. It was one of the most shameful acts of his life, and yet the great king had it in his generous heart to forgive him. One reason was likely that those born with ancient fearsome power were few and far between in this world, and in their era, they scarcely even existed aside from the great king himself. The great king regarded him as a kind of friend, a kindred spirit, perhaps. Thinking faintly of his great king, that excellent ruler and warrior, Archer gazed upon his current master, who had summoned him to the year 1991 AD as a heroic spirit. Okay, so no, it is his perspective. It was just kind of away from it for a time. A magus, a woman, Am I stupid? Isn't a singular maid? Isn't it a mage? Isn't it singularly a Wait, why am I confused? Okay, you know what? Let's mage versus magus. They're different titles. A magus is a practitioner. Okay. Why am I confused right now? Because isn't... Get off of here. Spoilers. To magi, but officially translated as mage. What do we want to use? We use magi for plural, mage for singular, all properties except type Lumina. Do we use mage or magus more? Magus 35. Mage is... Okay, no, never mind. We basically never get it. So, well, then let's go with, let's stick with magus. Because I wasn't even thinking about really that there. So, okay, wanted to double check. So we're sticking with magus there. A magus, a woman who once... you know what? I'm going to double check with the previous readings to make sure they're all the same then. A woman who was once a mother to a single child, Elsa. In a suite at the hotel in Ochanomizu, Chiyoda Ward, Tokyo, which was their base. In the modest Green Garden Suite 403, Archer's focus was drawn to Elsa. Oh, wait. Right, nope. Okay, I took this as that the mother's name was Elsa, and I'm like, wait, what? I had to think about that for a sec. So no, that's the mother's name. That's her. That's the master, right? Archer's focus was drawn to Elsa, who sat on the sofa directly across from him deep in thought. His physical form, out of spirit form, rested on the sofa. He could see her body. She was a fine woman, her smile in particular. He could see her heart. She was a fine woman. Her wish for the Holy Grail was not a selfish one. Archer could discern everything about her, but he would never speak it aloud. In a sense, he understood that his gaze was more discourteous than forcibly stripping someone naked to stare at them. He did what he could not to notice anything. He did what he could to not notice anything, especially when facing someone worthy of his respect. Archer, her muttering voice reached him. The voice of his second master, a woman whose bearing fell far short of the king who was his first. It would have been cruel to demand the fighting spirit, judgment, governance, and regal presence of a true ruler from her. Naturally, Archer did not demand it of her. Having met her through his summoning ritual, acknowledged her as his master, accepted her wishes and feelings, and decided to fight by her side, all that remained was to walk with her. He had no hesitation in it. Indeed, there was not a single shred of hesitation within him. "What's the matter, master? That was your gloomiest tone yet." "Was it?" "Yep." A nod, a soft, half-hearted smile. Fully aware of the conversation about to unfold, he took care not to let her realize this. "If you're hesitant, I'll lend you an ear. Anytime you need. I'm your servant, you know. Plus, I've grown pretty fond of you as a person, too. You can ask me for favors." "Really?" Her emerald eyes didn't meet his. Elsa's gaze was fixed to the floor. "I don't lie very often." "Not that often, huh?" She smiled a little. Just a little. Even if he'd expected it, he couldn't help the way his mood sank ever so slightly. Oh yeah. In the back of his mind, Archer wished to himself that if she could always smile. Not just Elsa, but anyone who strove to avoid evil and do good. How wonderful it would be if their lives and their hearts could all be filled with joy and peace. Even if the world would never allow such a thing. They say that actions speak louder than words, right? I want to be that kind of person, but I'm not omnipotent or anything, so sometimes I wind up telling a lie or two. "I see. So you don't lie very often." "That's about it." Another nod. The conversation halted for a moment. There was a familiar feeling, similar to the one Elsa had 5 days prior, after being caught off guard by the mystic eyes of the boy who seemed to be Berserker's master. Though it was somewhat better than their encounter with Saber's master in the mountains of Okutama 3 days prior. Silently, he gazed at her profile. Her womanly face retained so much of its girlhood, it was hard to believe that she was a mother. There was a definite shadow to her, though. Back there, in Okutama, something within you broke. You become possessed. He could read it from her face without having to focus. That day, that moment, when something within the magus named Elsa Saijo was irreparably shattered. When he embraced her slender shoulders as she stood speechless in an uncontrollable sob. All right, when she saw that there was a child there and she didn't want to kill a child and yeah. Archer did not ask what happened. Not once at any point in the past 3 days. He believed it was not his place to speak or to pry. It was something for her to consider, even if it would cause the tide of the Holy Grail war to sway. "You decide, Elsa. You'll survive. Your life will go on after this battle." Even if that decision would determine his fate as a heroic spirit. He offered her no advice. He offered her no guidance. Archer simply waited, as a temporary guest who had taken form in the present day, until this person who truly lived in the era decided her own path. 10 minutes, an hour, however long it would take. First 1 second, then 2, 3. Save Tokyo. After 10 seconds, Elsa spoke, her gaze slightly lowered yet fixed on Archer. Their eyes met, a half-breath of silence. Oh, a satisfying answer. At the very least, it was one that she had decided for herself. Even if interference from something akin to the world itself were to occur, the emotion and will of Elsa Saijo, who had endured her 5 minutes in the world's hell, would certainly be present. So, even if the words were spun from the demonic whisper of the demonic Druge, I'm going to double check if that comes up in FGO at some point, he had no choice but to support her with all that he had. More than that, the content of her answer. He would never forget it. That's what the boy was saying, wasn't it? Yeah. Tatsumi, the boy who was Berserker's master. Past tense. The young boy from Tokyo who had seemingly been eliminated from the Holy Grail War. When they encountered him in Akihabara 5 days prior, the young man had told her something. He wanted to save Tokyo. He wanted to stop the Holy Grail War. That kid. He said he wanted to save the city. Save its people. That would be it's with an apostrophe, right? Because it's the people of the city. Right? I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Can you believe it? Even though he knew I was or no, this is her. That kid. He said he wanted to save the city, save its people. Can you believe that? Even though he knew I was a magus, even though he surely knew that I was taking part in the Holy Grail War, that was what he said to me. Because he had friends. Because he had someone he liked. He wanted to stop the Holy Grail War no matter what. Huh. You're not laughing? Of course not. If anything, that's what guys like me are supposed to say. Saying so, his smile was full-hearted at last. Excellent. While enduring an erosion of her mind on a scale incomparable to ordinary magecraft, while enduring an aberration in her brain that caused her to confuse the girl with her long-lost child, even when her entire personality felt like it was being shredded from deep within, she didn't utter a single scream, didn't ask for help, overcame it with a single sob, and arrived at the answer herself. A proud conclusion worthy of this bowman's second master. All ranks, first the king. I praise you, I applaud you, I draw my bow, for you, for all of you. From here on, I will journey to the Grand Temple where the one who declared war on 5 of us heroic spirits, proclaiming himself as Rider, the mightiest foe in the world, the radiant god king Ozymandias, whose name shines brilliantly in the history of ancient Egypt. Okay. Even if his reasons remain unclear, I will see to it that the pharaoh who declared that he would raise the largest city in the Far East and its population of over 10 million to the ground is utterly vanquished. Indeed, heroes existed to aid mankind. Archer, Don't say it. You've made your decision, and I've agreed to it. With this kind of thing, well, it is what it is. It's fine. Half a day before, this conversation took place on the morning of the decisive battle over Tokyo Bay. All right, I'm going to take a quick sippy of my... Some good barley tea. I've been really enjoying barley tea. What a good flavor. The situation was desperate. Despite forming a united front with Saber, they were at the peak of their disadvantage. It was February 1991, late at night, the decisive battle over Tokyo Bay. The vast corridors of Ryder's noble phantasm, the peerless reality marble known as the Shining Great Temple Complex, Ramesium Teturius, I've never said that out loud, spread across the pitch-black sea as if swallowing the starless night sky. The 3 servants assigned to the 3 knight classes had gone into enemy territory, into this death trap of their own accord. It was as if they were summoned by some unknown hand. This need not be said, but it was obvious beyond belief that they had entered into an immensely powerful domain where every phenomena worked in Ryder's favor. Would it be phenomenon or phenomena? Because isn't it phenomena is plural? I'm going to look this up. Phenomena is plural or singular? Phenomenons. Well, let's go phenomena versus phenomena. Which is the better one here? What's the difference? Phenomena is the plural. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Every phenomenon, right? Yeah, let's go. I prefer phenomena. Yeah. Where every phenomena worked in Ryder's favor. Truly they are in the palm of the enemy's hand. In this case, perhaps it would be more apt to say that they were encroaching on the depths of his being. The reality marble that embodied the pharaoh's inner world was a true manifestation of the age of gods. Immortal sphinxes with the power to regenerate infinitely swarmed to attack them. The same was true of the great temple's master, Rider Ozymandias. Immortal, indestructible. Using the autonomous operation of his clairvoyant skill to target the enemy with precision, aided by the release of Saber's invisible air, Archer's fatal, unavoidable arrow pierced dozens of the temple's inner walls, reaching the main temple a kilometer away. His arrow shattered the divine Hittite iron walls of the main temple that could repel ordinary anti-army noble phantasms without a dent. With unflinching resolve, it skewered Ryder's heart, Ryder's spiritual core as he sat on the throne. But the God King did not fall. He regenerated in an instant. It was like a film reel playing in reverse. Ha 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 ha! Useless, futile, reckless, unseemingly. I shall not die. No wound shall be carved into my flesh. Feel that fact with your very being. Archer saw it play out. His clairvoyance revealed all. The absolute power of his noble phantasm allowed the invincible, infinitely regenerating God King to roar with laughter from his throne. Was it the blessings bestowed upon him by the ancient gods, or the power of Ozymandias, the pharaoh born with the gods within him, or was it the very essence of a great hero who ruled over his land for ages, sublimating his being as a king yet God, God yet king into a new kind of faith? Archer may not have known many kings, but Ryder's nature surely differed from the others. Mighty, invincible, an opponent worthy of praise, and yet he would not yield. It was still too early to give up. It would be clear to any discerning eye that the three servants who entered the temple were, in all likelihood, mere moments away from losing their lives. Archer could acknowledge the dire situation and their overwhelming disadvantage. Lancer took a cooperative stance at first, but whispered something and vanished somewhere after the beasts achieved their third complete regeneration. Her safety was unknown. The 7 divine beasts continued their assault, and the 2 servants wielding sword and bow were caught in an endless counterattack. His attempt to snipe Ryder had been their last chance to break the stalemate, but that too had been stamped out. If this were a war between nations, he would have advised his king to retreat long ago. However, this was something else entirely. There were no soldiers nor civilians to defend. Only the king and themselves, these heroes with unmatched power, remained. That's a bit strange. I'm gonna just do that as a comma. Saber! Dodging the Sphinx's claws, red-hot with magical energy by a hair's breadth, extinguishing the firestorm spewed by another 50 arrows fired at once, he called out to the heroic spirit of the sword. The instant the words left his mouth, Archer was already at the ceiling of the great corridor, 10 meters above the stone floor below. "We're not finished yet?" He called out one more time, landing lightly on the ceiling. "A few more minutes," Saber replied, using his golden sword, now released from its wind-like scabbard, to slaughter the divine beasts. Great unreasonable demand, if you ask me. As heroic spirits, no enemy on Earth would have stood a chance. That would be the capital E, right? Because we're talking about the planet, not like ground. Servants were the embodiment of mythology. They transcended all living creatures. Even against the most powerful contemporary weapon, a battle would likely result in a one-sided slaughter. I said slided. But a horde of divine beasts was different. Each possessed a level of mystery and phantasm that could rival a heroic spirit. They were sphinxes, roaring in forces of royal authority, symbols of flame and storm, incarnations of destruction itself. Should one let their guard down for even a fraction of a second, their fangs and claws would shatter the spiritual core of a heroic spirit's ethereal body. 30 minutes had passed since the battle at the temple begun. Every evasion and attack against the divine beasts was executed at full strength without hesitation. No matter how intense a heroic spirit's magical energy may have been, their maintenance and operation were governed solely by the magical energy of the magi who were their masters. That is, by the magic circuits of human beings. I'm gonna go. That's gonna get the the longer one, right? There we go. How long could they possibly last? Elsa was surely gasping for breath at their base, her magical energy depleting rapidly. Compounding on that, the divine might permeating from the great temple was a curse akin to those dished out by ancient Egyptian deities. It corroded Archer and Saber's limbs merely because they existed within it. Various toxins that would kill normal creatures within seconds saturated the air, gnawing at their lungs and insides. Their parameters dropped across the board, and sometimes their skills were weakened as well. My fingertips are numb from poison. That's a first for me. As legend held, Archer's body was resistant to all disease and poison, and yet a streak of crimson blood was dripping from his mouth. His lungs were on fire. Saber, without the wind that once enveloped his golden sword, was likely in a similar state. The speed of each of their movements had dropped by 1 level. Well, you gotta do what you gotta do, he spoke briefly. The fight raged on. It wasn't a situation where he could snipe from a distance. It was a head-on brawl. Dodging the claws and fangs of a divine beast, scrambling up its lion body, clutching an enchanted arrow in his right hand, he struck its enormous human face without hesitation, gouging out its eye, piercing its brain, instantly destroying its spiritual core. He'd long since lost count of how many dozens he'd taken down this way. Leaving the 2 beasts closing in on Saber, he fired arrows at the other 3 following behind. A single strike from any of these enemies would be fatal, so every attack had to be parried, evaded, or annihilated before it could reach him. Though he was outwardly unscathed, the battle went on and exhaustion inevitably began to set in. If I could just hold out for a few more minutes, it'd be a miracle, he muttered to himself, grinding away his finite magical energy reserves. Relying solely upon his infinite fighting spirit, the bowman and the swordsman formed a miracle within the great temple where miracles were forbidden. After 180 seconds of desperate battle, after the brilliant evasion of countless death traps, in 2 seconds, please use it. A woman's voice. The first shockwave arrived almost simultaneously with Saber's nod. A thunderous roar echoed throughout the entire temple. The tremors, indistinguishable from a high-magnitude earthquake, caused faint cracks to appear in the colossal pillars that towered over the temple's grand corridor. The divine beasts flinched. Archer understood that the perfect opportunity that he was anticipating had suddenly arrived. He knew that this was a strike from Lancer's hidden noble phantasm, her spear. He knew that this was a strike that could distort the divine wrath of ancient gods. A second passed since the voice rang out. 2 seconds. Saber sent a gem, a pure philosopher's stone, crashing onto the floor below. It was not explained in words. The swordsman never said what it was, but Archer understood nonetheless. Without having seen it before, without ever having been taught, he grasped the overwhelming effect that gem, sparkling with a myriad of colors, would bring. In other words, the ability to neutralize the most troublesome of the great temple's divine powers, even if for a single instant, the profound secret of magecraft called alchemy, which could nullify the curse of the gods. All right. The destined moment had arrived. At his side, Saber began to raise his golden sword high. Particles of light began to fill the surrounding air. Such breathtaking beauty. Whether it was the sheer intensity of the magical energy or the glory imbued within the sword, the divine beasts, the embodiments of ferocity and tyranny, stood frozen in awe. Under any other circumstances, he would have wished to bear witness to it. Very well. It was time to begin. Time to pour every last ounce of strength within him into one last shot. Time to go all out. Time to give it everything he had. Archer grew the string of his crimson great bow back further and further. Are we getting what I think we are with that? At the same time, within the innermost sanctum, the God King Ozymandias sat serenely, his right hand raised. What had transpired within his great temple and what the intruders sought were self-evident. The course of action required of him in this moment was just as clear. Quietly, coldly, the God King sensed the approaching end of the battle. Those who answered his summons came to the Shining Temple: Archer, Saber, and Lancer. All 3 were valiant and resolute, but this was the end. Indeed, Lancer's noble phantasm had originally belonged to some god, or Lancer herself had once been some sort of powerful divine spirit. Either way, she seemed to have broken free of his seals. By combining that all-out strike, which shook the great temple to its core, with Castor's petty trick, his breach of their contract, he had temporarily freed the sword and bow noble phantasms from his curse. Even if only for a few seconds, I shall show you how my divine might is broken. His mouth began to twist. It was a smile. An expression meant to praise the strong, an expression that was certain of his victory, but also The expression of a ruler who wielded absolute power. Wielder of the holy sword, and you, archer of Persia, who echoes across the ages. This was a splendid rebellion. In acknowledgement, I, the King of Kings, shall respond with all that I have. When he ruled Upper and Lower Egypt, when he walked the earth... Do we want to go lowercase? Or is he talking about he's on the ground? No, that's lowercase. He walked the earth in a body brimming with life. Or would we go... Would you say you walk the earth? Is that upper or lowercase? You know what? That's upper, because he's literally walking on the earth, right? He may have chosen to praise the warriors and welcome them as commanders in his army. The God King was magnanimous. He forgave even those who raised their blades against the gods. This time, though, there would be no forgiveness. Because they were heroic spirits summoned as part of the Holy Grail War ritual? No, certainly not. As the pharaoh who descended upon the earth once more, he merely did what he did to save the world. Even if over 10 million innocent lives were lost, Therin, the goddess who devoured the world, who now possessed the Greater Grail, had to be executed. Again, that's a name that is very important that we know about from FGO. That's interesting. Therin, the goddess who devoured the world, who now possessed the Greater Grail. Huh. Okay. Huh. He would show no mercy to any who attempted to hinder the act, vaporizing them without question until she was obliterated. Though his master hidden in Okutama appeared to have perished, a faint supply of magical energy still existed, fed to him from the Asemi's family's facilities throughout the city. Relying on his imperial privileged skill was not something a god king like himself found particularly pleasant. Combining his magical energy with that skill would secure him enough time to slay these three servants within his temple, reduce Tokyo to ashes, and seize the Holy Grail for himself. Miriamun. A declaration of condemnation. He uttered the brief phrase. It was not the true name of a noble phantasm. That had already been declared when the God King manifested his great temple, the garden of his mind's eye. So indeed, this was a condemnation. The great light bulb Dendara, a display of his transcendent divine might housed within the innermost sanctum, the same brilliance that had obliterated several United States Navy Pacific Fleet Aegis battleships off the coast of Yokosuka, with its scorching heat descending from the zenith, with the wrath of the sun against which man had no defense, mingled with thunder of condemnation from this ruler. Once more, without mercy, without compassion, to utterly annihilate three foolish heroic spirits who dared to defy the gods. Another sip. Boy, we're going in. Archer, please. It was no delusion. Elza's words reached Archer clear as day. A voice from afar. Somewhere in the city. A form of silent communication only possible between those bound by contract. In that instance, his remaining magical energy surged forth all at once. Oh, simultaneous use of all three command spells. The command spells. Proof of the contract between master and servant granted by the Greater Grail. Granted absolute command over a servant, and they were crystallizations of magical energy far beyond the reserves of a magus. At times it could be used as a supremely powerful weapon. This was one of those times. An absolute command urging him to release the name of his noble phantasm. If he obeyed and used his noble phantasm, it would unleash power surpassing its conventional limits. O sacred Lord in heaven. With his bow drawn beyond its limits, he felt magical energy surge throughout his entire body as he wove the words. His lips parted naturally. It was the second time he'd spoken those words. The first was on Persian soil, where the noble yet fleeting age of gods had ended and the age of man had begun. As a bowman under the command of great King Manuchahar, direct descendant of the hero who slew the wicked dragon, he adorned the end of his life with this prayer. Radiant Lord, merciful, who bestowed upon me wisdom and strength. Thinking back on it, yes. Had his life been lived solely for that final moment? His exceptional birth gave him power so immense that it seemed like a remnant of the age of gods, utterly unfit for the world of man, he was destined to exist as the mightiest of heroes. As a hero, he fought many, killed many. Under his great king's command, he fired one arrow after another to end the 60-year war with the Turks. I call upon thee to witness my heart, my thoughts, and everything I've achieved. And then, the moment came. The moment both nations had long awaited. The end of their bloody days of conflict. Surrounding King Manichahar's army, the Turkic general, I don't even know what that letter is. That is an N and a J put together, but again, I need to double check what they use for FGO for that. The Turkish general Frandrasayan, I have no freaking idea, declared that the end of the war would come to the war would come to an end by establishing the boundaries between the respective kingdoms. The great king agreed, and it fell to him to undertake the great task of defining those borders. Of course, he could never forget it. The single arrow he'd released after his prayer carried it with a wish for peace, for all people, warriors, their wives, children, their parents, their friends, all who were exhausted by the endless war, regardless of which nation they belonged to. He was certain that he would achieve it. Harash. Right. Oh, Elsa must have been crying. Her voiceless words, which required neither throat nor tongue, still trembled violently. This must have been the first time she'd called him by true name that way. Oh, I guess so. Don't cry. It's all right. You didn't do anything wrong. Muttering this in the corner of his mind, not meant to be communicated, he drew his bowstring back even further. Saber had already released his noble phantasm's true name. His magical energy surged to its peak, accompanied by particles of light that filled the surroundings. It was nothing short of spectacular. That radiant golden sword at its center was a noble phantasm with the power to, well, at the very least, destroy a fortress. But it wasn't enough. Far from it. The blazing heat of the sun, which Ozymandias could unleash from his shrine like a cannon from the heavens, was far too intense to be cancelled out by their noble phantasms. If unleashed at full power, it had likely enough thermal energy to turn all of Tokyo into carbon! Oh my goodness. Whether this was due to the abnormal state of his reality marble or not, its power was beyond any standard. That was his purpose there. He who possessed eyes that could perceive the God King's impossible power. He who possessed a noble phantasm with the potential to resist it. Or perhaps things would be different if the golden holy sword were to demonstrate its true worth properly. No, if it were in perfect condition, it would have been virtually impossible to defeat. But if it wasn't used in this situation, it may as well not exist. Can rely on it. Oh yeah. Oh, I think bro is doing his Stella. Yep, I see the words. Then yes, as he had done long ago, he would do what he must. Now, creator of the moon and stars, behold my deeds, my death, and my spenta armati, which I must carry out. With his prayer, he drew the great bow offered to the gods. I think it's that we've been using one word. Right? We've been using great bow, right? I think so. Haven't we? We've been using... Yeah. We've been using great bow as one. Yeah. I don't know why it's coming up as that. No. Yeah. He released the reed arrow. The arrow of salvation, meant to end the suffering of battle. Stella! It was a feat of skill etched deep into the memory of West Asian peoples thousands of years into the future. A wish that could only be fulfilled by one who was a remnant of the age of gods, something unattainable by any who truly lived among mankind. Oddly, it resembled the miracle performed by the saint who appeared in Egypt around the time and led the, let's just again stick with Hebrew people, right? Led the Hebrew people away. A single beam of light that split the earth. Yeah, because we're talking about, not the miracle of the saint parting the sea, but the ultimate wish of a bowman splitting the earth. Yeah. Again, capital E. Or no, we're talking about the land, right? Okay. An attack with an extreme range, spanning 2,500 kilometers. The arrow once shot eastward from Mount Damavan to the Oxus River. The earth divided by the arrow served as a border for over 2,000 years, splitting the earth, ending the conflict between two nations. A supernatural feat establishing a new border for the sake of everlasting peace. Of a lasting peace, yeah. Now here, it drew the curtain on the mythic, legendary, lustrous battle in the shining Great Temple complex, becoming one with the Holy Sword's brilliance, merging, transforming into a dazzling meteor. That's cool. It's like a team-up Noble Phantasm there. As previously mentioned, Noble Phantasms are formidable. The mystery of these artifacts, which embody the legends of heroic spirits, is truly immense. When a Noble Phantasm releases its true name, an offensive Noble Phantasm would almost certainly destroy its adversary. Evading or defending against it is another matter. Noble Phantasms are a heroic spirit's trump card. Their power isn't in destructive force alone, and in many cases they perform a sort of decisive lethal ability. Even if it isn't an offensive Noble Phantasm, it can have a profound influence on the course of battle. Therefore, understand that ordinary evasion or defense is unlikely to be effective. It would be no exaggeration to say that a Noble Phantasm can only be countered by another Noble Phantasm. Of course, this does not mean that a Noble Phantasm can always be countered by another Noble Phantasm. The possibilities of Noble Phantasms are simply too diverse to say so. They exist not only as a destructive power, but could subjugate the minds of sentient beings. Speaking solely of destructive power, broken phantasms deserve a special mention here. They are extremely specialized applications of Noble Phantasms. By exhausting all of one's concealed magical energy and detonating it, they can unleash overwhelming power. Naturally, a destroyed Noble Phantasm cannot be regenerated. It could be called an ultimate trump card because it can only be used once, but this course of action is not recommended. The loss of a Noble Phantasm could directly lead to defeat in the Holy Grail War. An excerpt from an old notebook. The light overflowed. Within the innermost sanctum, a supreme deity commanded all within the great temple that was his Noble Phantasm, like darkness silently filling the night, as if it was the natural order of things. Light permeated every corner of the space, filling it completely, overflowing, flowing, swallowing everything without end. Absolute magical energy that brought destruction. As if to prove it, the iron walls of the temple were completely melted, the throne shattered, and the great light bulb had crumbled. Yet it was not scorching heat. The God King Ozymandias only perceived it as radiance. He never imagined that the combination of two Noble Phantasms could nullify the immense heat achieved within his temple's reality marble, the thermal projection of his giant light bulb, which could reach the intensity of a solar flare. He considered it impossible, but more than that, he was captivated by the brilliance of their two Noble Phantasms. No shock, no impatience. It's a good pick of him. The Pharaoh of the Sun, the might of the gods, the embodiment of the God King. The Pharaoh knew long ago that none of these two could match up. Ah, there was joy. I know that light. There was longing. I have seen it once before. There was fury. The day my friend, my brother, left my side. There was sorrow. The parting of the Sea of Reeds. Wait, is the Red Sea also known as the Sea of Reeds? Wait, what? Oh. Wait, it's not called the Red Sea, it's the Sea of Reeds. I was always wondering, I'm like, is the water red? Red Sea is a corruption of, oh my god, okay. Well, now I know. The Sea of Reeds is the Red Sea. Oh, that's cool. I love learning stuff from Fate. The parting of the Sea of Reeds. It was certainly the same starlight, with countless emotions stirring together in his voice. The God King recalled the friend who grew up by his side who laughed with him, as well as the enemy who parted ways and fought him, whispering the name of that friend-turned-enemy who would have gone on to be called a saint. In that case you must. The lot who shall save the world in my stead. He gazed upon the horizon. It was the shining hope that people sometimes called a miracle. The shrine collapsed. Light and heat caused the colossal structure called radiance to shatter from within. His formidable noble phantasm, stretching 2 kilometers, vanished in an instant. Wow, look at that assassin! Yes. Ah, his sword is tearing through the night. She gazes dreamily at the beam of light that pierced the sky. I never knew something could be so beautiful, so dazzling. There's a little something else mixed in with it, but it's definitely the light of a holy sword, right? Seijo Manaka, a girl whose cheerful voice rang out beneath the night sky. Having finished massacring... Oh, okay. Having finished massacring the Asemi families in the mountains of Okutama, she was now in Tokyo's coastal district, with the decisive battle over Tokyo Bay looming in the distance. Lightly, like a fairy dancing through a field of flowers, she approached the seaside beside a public telephone booth. The holy sword. He really was able to use it properly. I'll have to praise Castor when we get back. Huh. What did Castor do to it? Oh, right. He was probably made the Philosopher's Stone. Yes, Lady Minaka. At her side, Assassin hid her expression behind her mask. She's jealous. I'm so sorry. Somewhere in Chiyoda Ward, Tokyo, at a different hideout from the Hillside Hotel. I'm so sorry. Elsa Saijo was sobbing. As her call came to an end, on a new phone so large it could be mistaken for a bag. Sitting weakly on the cold floor, she acknowledged the presence of the light that pierced the night sky outside her window. She distinctly sensed the moment when Archer, the heroic spirit she had contracted with, unleashed his noble phantasm with everything that he had. Her lips trembled. I'm sorry, Archer. Arash. Her emerald eyes overflowed with tears. According to the tale of Arash Kamengir, the bowman who did what was right. The bowman who did what was right. The long war between Persia and Tehran was brought to an end by a single arrow. He brought happiness to the people of both nations and then departed. The hero never returned. Just as he fired that supernatural, impossible arrow, his sturdy body, which had never succumbed to any illness or poison, nor had ever been wounded over the course of his countless battles, shattered into pieces. Just as he wished as he recited his prayer on his trek to Mount Damavand. From that point onward, the world of man would have no need for divine might, the likes of which were seen in the age of gods, just as he'd so humbly desired. Well, maybe it wasn't totally unnecessary. If something threatened the world of man, its peace and harmony, then perhaps those were the times in which it was needed, like he once was. Yes, like the saint who split the Western Sea. Yes, like the knight at his side who wielded the holy sword of light. To shatter everything, at times great power was necessary. At least, Tokyo still stands. Elsa is safe. Within the crumbling reality marble, the great temple complex, the colossal storm of magical energy colliding head-on had utterly destroyed the noble phantasm, which was known for its insurmountable defenses. Archer's noble phantasm, lone meteor Stella, the blazing light of Saber's holy sword, and the scorching light of Rider Ozymandias' great Dendera bulb had obliterated every fragment of magical energy that composed the horde of divine beasts and tore the temple to shreds. The combined light of the sword and bow shattered the innermost sanctum. The God King's assault had vaporized roughly 80% of the temple's foundational structure. The existence of any remaining footing was sheer luck. But still, that was a bit excessive, don't you think? Had Archer's stance been off by even a meter, he would have been swallowed by the torrent of destruction midway through unleashing his noble phantasm. In fact, Saber had come close to that very fate. Whether it was due to some effect of the holy sword or not, even if he wasn't completely annihilated, he was in a state where half his body had been blown away by the aftermath of the intense heat. Any ordinary creature would have been dead long ago. Servants were different, though. Their ethereal bodies were just temporary vessels. Even if their physical forms were shattered, healing magecraft could repair them endlessly as long as their spiritual cores were intact. You all right? Your spiritual core isn't damaged, is it? No reply. The heroic spirit of the sword lay silently collapsed. Sorry, I wish I could have guided it to my position better, but there wasn't enough time. Scratching his cheek as he spoke, he felt something peel away. Oh, that wasn't good. He would shatter if he touched himself carelessly. He could feel the crack form on his cheek with a sharp snap. Saber, still motionless on the ground, had his eyes open wide. He seemed to have grasped what was happening. It was simple, really. Archer Arash's noble phantasm, true to his legend, destroyed his own spiritual core when his true name was revealed. That was why he, unlike the saint who parted the sea, unlike the swordsman who wielded a sacred weapon, could unleash a strike equal to starlight itself. Neither bow nor arrow. It was because his noble phantasm was the ultimate technique unleashed by his own body when expressed as a servant guided by the Holy Grail. The effect of a broken phantasm was automatically applied to him. Even if it was classified as an anti-army noble phantasm, the breadth of magical energy that it generated in its destructive range could rival that of an anti-nation noble phantasm. In terms of pure destructive power, it was comparable to an anti-fortress noble phantasm. However, it was only to be used once. No exceptions. If he used it, he would die. If not for the omnipotent wish-granting device known as the Holy Grail, the outcome would remain unchanged. Some later generations say he survived, but, well, that's about it. This is me, the real Arash Kamengir. His legs began to crack. His arms, chest, stomach all shattered. His mystically forged armor crumbled all the same. He didn't have much time left. If things went on like this, a simple piece of temple rubble would finish him off. I wish I could tell Elsa this too, but the voice would no longer reach her. She had lost all 3 of her command spells. I didn't even sort of realize that, that would, if you get rid of your command spells, that would get rid of your ability to talk to them. I never even considered that. Huh. He was a bowman whose eyes saw everything. He knew, grasped, and understood his own end as soon as he walked into this death trap. So she shouldn't cry. It wasn't her decision that killed him. That was what he wanted to tell her, but alas, it was impossible. A voice without sound could not reach her, and he did not possess magecraft or a mystic code that could allow him to communicate with her. No use wishing for things I don't have. So he would say it to the one person he could reach. Oh, that's a good picture too, dang. To the heroic spirit of the sword who, in the Holy Grail War where magi and heroic spirits kill each other until only one remains, who appeared in the world to have his wish granted by the Holy Grail, who nonetheless disregarded the risk of annihilation, deliberately ignoring the possibility that it would lose him the Holy Grail, to come to the great temple ahead of everyone else, drawing his blade against the mighty Ozymandias. To the King Knight of a fallen nation? Night King? No. He may have been that person, but that wasn't it. Arash spoke to this person. Regardless of his origin or allegiance, he spoke to the hero who he must have known somewhere in his heart who he truly was. Listen to me, Saber. His voice trembled. His lungs had shattered. You are just. His throat was tearing itself apart. The people of Tokyo? Well, I guess under normal circumstances they'd have nothing to do with us. His ears could no longer hear. His eardrums were gone. Still though, they're innocent people. What difference is there between them and the loved ones we once lived to protect? Almost every organ in his body was gone. He had to hurry. This is as far as I go. Hey, King of Knights, man who wields the shining sword in glory. His tongue split in two. Oh, his brain and spiritual core would vanish together. What is your wish for the Holy Grail? Those final words, did they truly reach the wielder of the Holy Sword? Dang. All right. Well, I knew Estella was happening, but it did kind of come earlier. The connections with Moses is interesting. That's a very interesting connection to say that, like, Moses's noble phantasm is similar to his. That's a really interesting sort of thing to kind of draw at the end there, but okay. that marks the end of another chapter. We will move on to Dear My Hero Act 4 then next time, guys. So, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you then for the next chapter of our story. Ciao.
Yo.